galaxy was full of strange secrets, but none was more feared than the prison at the edge of the stars. It was not an ordinary place of stone and steel. It was a fortress built to keep something inside, something so dangerous that no one dared to go near without shivering in fear. Inside that dark and silent place, chained with unbreakable metal, was the one they called the Giantess. She was taller than any creature known, her body strong, her skin marked by battles from long ago, her eyes burned with a faint glow. Even though her body was weak and starving, every guard knew one truth: if she ever broke free, entire worlds would fall. She was not just a prisoner. She was a warning. For years, she sat in silence, her chains heavy, her mouth dry. No food had touched her lips, no water had been given. The galaxy had made a choice. Let her starve. Let her vanish slowly. No one dared to feed her. No one dared to even speak her name loudly. To them, she was death waiting in the shadows. But one day, something changed among the crowd of guards and visitors. A human soldier walked by. He was not like the others. He was young, curious, and stubborn. He looked at the Giantess and did not turn away. While the others felt only fear, he felt something different. He felt pity. The whispers around him were sharp. "Do not look at her, she will curse you," one alien warned. "She is a monster. If she eats, she will rise again," another hissed. But the human did not listen. His eyes stayed on the Giantess. She was weak, her lips cracked, her body trembling, yet her spirit seemed unbroken. She was alive, and she was watching at night. He could not sleep. Her image burned in his mind. Why would they let her die in chains? Why was everyone so afraid to show mercy? Was she truly a monster, or was she something more? Questions twisted inside him until he could no longer ignore them. The next day, he returned to the prison gates. He held food in his hands. Simple food, nothing special, bread, water, enough to keep a life breathing. The guards laughed at him. "You are a fool, human," they said. "Do you want to die? Do you want to become her prey?" But he walked past their voices, his steps heavy, his heart racing. Inside the prison chamber, the silence was thick. The Giantess lifted her head slowly. Her chains rattled like thunder. Her glowing eyes fell on him. She did not move. She only stared. He could feel his knees shake. Every part of his body screamed to run, but he stayed. He placed the food on the cold floor. Just within her reach, the air was tense. The guards held their weapons, ready to strike. The human's breath grew shallow. This was the moment. Would she kill him? Would she break free? Or would she accept the gift for a long moment? Nothing happened then. Slowly, the Giantess leaned forward, her chains grinding against the floor. Her hand, massive and scarred, moved toward the food. She lifted it carefully as if it were precious. She sniffed it once, then ate. Her throat moved as she swallowed. Her eyes never leaving the human. Gasps filled the chamber. The guards whispered in panic. "It has begun. It has begun." But the Giantess did not roar. She did not break her chains. She only ate, and when she was finished, she lowered her head, her lips curling into something strange, something that looked almost like a smile, or maybe a warning. The human stood frozen, his heart beating like thunder. He had done what no one dared to do. He had fed the captive Giantess, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. A spark of connection, a thread of trust, or perhaps the start of something far more dangerous. He turned to leave. The guards shouted at him, calling him mad, calling him cursed. But his mind was not on their words. His mind was on her eyes, on that faint, chilling smile. He did not know what he had awakened, but deep inside he knew one truth: nothing would ever be the same again. The human returned the next day, his heart still heavy from what he had done. The image of the chained Giantess eating from his hands burned in his memory. No one believed he would come back. No one thought he would survive the night. But here he was again, standing at the gates of the most feared prison in the galaxy. The guards looked at him with wide eyes, their whispers sharp like knives. "He lives," one alien guard muttered. "Impossible." "She must have spared him for a reason," another said. But they stepped aside, curious, half afraid, waiting to see what madness the human would attempt today. The heavy doors creaked open, and once again he stepped inside the chamber. The silence was heavier than before, as if the air itself was holding its breath. The Giantess was awake, her glowing eyes fixed on the entrance. She had been waiting. Her chains rattled as she lifted her head, her face still marked by hunger, but her gaze sharper than ever. The human carried food again, this time a little more. Water and fruit along with bread. His hands trembled, but his steps did not stop. He could feel every guard staring at him, weapons ready, fear thick in the air. Yet he walked forward, until he stood close to her again. The giantess did not move at first. She only stared, her eyes locked onto him as if she could see through his soul. Her size made him feel like nothing. Her breath was slow but deep, each exhale echoing like a storm in the hollow prison. Still, he placed the food before her, his hands steady despite the pounding of his heart. This time, she reached faster, her massive hand taking the food with less hesitation. She ate with care, her eyes never leaving him. The chamber was filled with the sound of chains and slow chewing. Every second felt like a test, as if she was measuring him, judging him, deciding what he truly was. The human spoke, his voice low but clear. "I am not your enemy." His words hung in the cold air. The guards behind him gasped at his foolishness. "Do not speak to it," one hissed. "Do not invite death," another whispered. But he ignored them, his eyes still fixed on hers. To his shock, her lips parted slightly, her voice was deep, rough but unmistakable. "Why?" she whispered. The word in his own language. The sound shook the chamber like thunder wrapped in silk. The guards froze in disbelief, their weapons lowered in confusion. She had spoken, and she had spoken to him. The human's breath caught in his chest. She had asked a question, not roared in anger, not cursed him, but asked a single word. A word filled with meaning. A word that cut deeper than any chain. Why had he fed her? Why had he dared? He swallowed hard, his mind racing, but his answer came simple. "Because no one else would," he said, his voice trembling but honest. "Because you are alive, and no one should starve." His words were plain, but they carried weight. The giantess stared at him in silence, her expression unreadable. For a long moment nothing moved, then, slowly, she leaned closer, her eyes glowing brighter, her chains groaning with her weight. The human felt his body tense, fear burning in his veins, yet he did not step back. He stayed, and in that moment, the giantess lowered her head until her eyes were level with his. The air was thick with tension, every guard ready to fire, every heart pounding with terror. The giantess studied him, her face close enough that he could see every scar on her skin, every line of pain and battle, and then, without warning, she let out a sound, not a roar, not a growl, but something almost human, a low laugh, deep and haunting. The guards panicked, shouting in fear, thinking she was about to break free. But she did not move, she only leaned back, her lips curling into a faint smile, her voice a whisper once again. "Human," she said, the word heavy, sharp, as if it carried both respect and warning. It was the first time in years she had spoken a name aloud. The human's heart pounded, but a strange calm filled him. She had not killed him. She had not cursed him. She had acknowledged him. And in that small moment something had shifted. The fear of the galaxy had become something else, a fragile connection between prisoner and man. But the guards were not calm. Their voices rose in panic. "She speaks his tongue," she remembers. "This cannot be allowed," they shouted, their weapons raised now, ready to fire at her chained body. But the human spun around, his voice louder than he thought possible. "Stop," he yelled. "She is not attacking. She is not your enemy." The guards hesitated, their fear battling with their orders, and in that hesitation the human turned back to her, her glowing eyes watching him with an intensity that burned. She had spoken his language, she had called him human. She had laughed for the first time in years, and deep inside he knew one truth. This was not the end of danger. This was only the beginning. The galaxy would never forgive what he had done, but the giantess had seen him, heard him, and in her own way, chosen to remember him. The human stepped back slowly, his heart still racing, and as the heavy doors closed behind him, the giantess whispered one last word, soft but clear, a word only he could hear. "Tomorrow," she said, leaving him frozen in place, his mind swirling with fear and wonder. What would tomorrow bring? The next day came, and the human could not rest. Sleep had refused to touch his eyes every time he closed them. He heard her voice, that deep whisper, that single word, tomorrow. It was not a threat, it was not anger. It was something else, something strange. And it pulled him back to the prison even when his mind told him to stay away. When he arrived, the guards stared at him with disbelief. Some shook their heads, others spat curses under their breath. To them, he was already dead, walking only because fate had not yet chosen the moment. But he ignored them, his steps steady, his hands holding food once again. He had decided he would keep his promise. If she expected him, he would not turn away. The giant doors groaned open, and the air inside was heavy, colder than the day before. The giantess was awake already, her glowing eyes fixed on the entrance. She had been waiting. She shifted her chains as soon as she saw him, the sound echoing like thunder across the walls. The other guards tensed, but she made no move. Her attention was on him alone. He walked forward, his feet heavy, his breath shallow, but his will unshaken. Once again, he placed the food on the cold stone floor. But this time, something different happened. She did not reach for it at once. She simply stared at him, her head tilted slightly, her glowing eyes narrow, as if she was studying him the way a scholar studies an ancient text. The human's heart beat faster. The silence stretched, then slowly, very slowly, the giantess leaned forward, her massive hand not reaching for the food, but lowering until her palm pressed against the floor, a gesture that felt deliberate, controlled, almost as if she was saying she would not harm him, not today. Only then did she take the food, carefully, with no rush, every move calm, her eyes never leaving his face. She ate with quiet grace, and when she was finished, she lifted her head once again, her lips parting slightly. "Why again?" she whispered. Her voice deep and soft, her words broken but clear. The human swallowed, then spoke. "Because you asked me to come back." His voice was quiet, but it did not shake. "You said tomorrow, so here I am." His answer was simple, but it carried something more. A choice, a connection, and she seemed to understand, because her lips curled not into a smile, but into something else, something like curiosity. The guards muttered in panic. Some stepped back. "It is learning him. It is studying him. This is dangerous," they hissed. But the human ignored them. He kept his eyes on her. Her face was unreadable, but he could feel it. She was no longer just watching, she was listening that night. Word spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In bars, on ships, in markets, people whispered. The human feeds the giantess and she speaks to him. Some laughed, calling it madness, others shivered, fearing it meant doom. But all of them were watching, waiting for what would happen next. The human returned again and again, each day bringing food, each day bringing silence that was broken by small words. Sometimes only one, sometimes two. She asked little things, questions without detail. Why? Who? Human. Words that felt like tests. Words that forced him to answer, and slowly, her voice became stronger, clearer, though still heavy and sharp like thunder wrapped in smoke. Each visit, he saw something change in her eyes, once filled with endless rage, now holding something more. A spark, not of kindness perhaps, but of thought, of memory. She was curious about him, about why he was different, why he dared to do what no one else had. But with curiosity came danger. The Council of Alien Leaders grew restless. They sent warnings. They told the guards to keep watch. If she grows stronger, destroy her, they ordered. But no one dared to move while the human was inside. No one wanted to face the wrath of the galaxy if he died in their care. One evening, as he placed food before her, she lowered her head closer than ever before. Her glowing eyes burned into his. Her breath was hot against his face, heavy like fire, and she whispered a new word, one that froze his blood. "Free," she said, the word low but clear, her meaning sharp as a blade. The human's chest tightened. He could not answer at first. His mind screamed warnings, but his heart was caught. She was asking him for freedom, and in her voice there was no roar of hatred, only a strange, aching sorrow, as if the chains themselves were breaking her soul. He stepped back, his lips dry, his heart racing. The guards whispered in panic. "She wants release, she wants war. She will burn us all." But he did not speak their words. His eyes stayed on hers, and for the first time, he saw not only power, not only fear, but something human in her gaze, something like loneliness. He left that night shaken. The word echoing in his mind, free, it chased him in his dreams. It followed him in his waking hours. The galaxy feared her, hated her, but he could not forget the hunger in her eyes. Not the hunger for food, but the hunger for freedom, and as the stars stretched above him, he realized something he had not before. The giantess was no longer just a prisoner to him, no longer just a monster in chains. She was a mystery, a living being, and his curiosity had grown as deep as hers. But curiosity is a dangerous flame, and as it burned in both human and giantess, the galaxy held its breath, for it knew something was coming, something that would change everything. The word free did not leave the human's mind. It echoed in his chest day and night. Every step he took, every breath he drew, it was there, pressing heavy against his thoughts. He had seen fear in her eyes before, he had seen hunger, but this was different. This was a plea, and it shook him more than any roar ever could when he returned the next day. The guards looked at him with even sharper suspicion. They had heard the whispers too. They knew the giantess had spoken more. They knew she had asked for something forbidden. "Do not listen to her," one alien hissed. "Her words are poison. Her promises are lies, but still the human entered. Food in his hands, determination in his steps inside. The giantess was awake, sitting tall despite her chains, her glowing eyes brighter than ever. When she saw him, she leaned forward, the metal groaning under her weight. The chamber filled with silence, thick and heavy until her lips parted. "Why?" she asked again, her voice steadier now. "Why feed—" "Enemy," the human hesitated, his throat dry. "You are not my enemy," he said, his voice trembling but clear. "I do not know who you are, I do not know what you have done, but no one deserves to starve." His words were simple, but they carried a truth, and for a moment her gaze softened, only for a flicker, but he saw it. She ate slowly, carefully, her eyes never leaving him, and when she finished she lowered her head, her voice deeper now. "Not monster," she whispered, "not what they say." The human's eyes widened. He leaned closer, desperate to understand. "Then tell me, who are you?" he asked, his words sharp with curiosity. "Why do they fear you? Why do they keep you here?" The giantess was silent for a long time, her chains rattling softly as she shifted, and then, in a voice that carried both pain and fire, she spoke. "Betrayed," she said, the word heavy, like a stone dropped into water. "Once. Free once." "Queen." Her voice shook, her words rough, but her meaning was clear. She was not born in chains. She had been taken, deceived, captured by those who feared her power. The human's breath caught, his mind racing. She was not simply a monster locked away. She was something greater, someone who had once ruled, who had once stood above others and now sat broken in silence. "Who betrayed you?" he asked, but her lips pressed shut, her glowing eyes burning with memories too deep to share still. Her silence spoke more than words. She was not what the galaxy claimed, not a beast without mind, not a creature without soul. She was a prisoner of politics, of fear, of treachery, and for the first time, the human wondered if the galaxy itself was the monster, not her. The guards behind him muttered in panic. "She is lying, she twists his heart. She weaves false stories," but he ignored them. His eyes locked onto hers. He could feel the truth in her voice, even if it was broken, even if it was hidden. The giantess leaned forward again, her chains creaking, her voice a low rumble. "You, listen," she said, her tone almost questioning, almost surprised. "Others fear you." "Not fear." The human felt his chest tighten. He did fear her. Every bone in his body screamed in terror, but he had chosen to act beyond that fear, and somehow she saw it. He answered softly, "Because fear is not always the truth." His words hung in the air, and for the first time her lips curled, not into a threat, but into something closer to sadness, maybe even gratitude. Then she spoke words that chilled him to his core. "Chains. Not forever." Her eyes glowed brighter, her voice steadier. "One day, break." The human stepped back. The guards tensed, their weapons clicking into readiness, but she did not rise. She did not fight. She only looked at him and whispered, "Choice." "Yours." The chamber grew colder, the silence sharp. The human's breath quickened. She was asking him not only for food, not only for company, but for freedom. She had given him a choice, one that no other being in the galaxy would dare to hold. When he left the prison that night, the stars felt heavier above him, his mind burning with her words, her secrets, her sorrow. Betrayed, queen, chains not forever. He could not escape them. They wrapped around his heart, demanding he decide. Was she truly a monster as the galaxy claimed? Or was she a victim, chained by lies, waiting for one soul brave enough to believe her? He lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, the sound of her voice echoing. Choice. Yours. And though he wanted to forget, though he wanted to walk away, he knew he could not. Because now the secret was his, and secrets had power. And far away, inside her prison, the giantess closed her eyes, her lips moving in silence, whispering words no one else could hear. Words in her own ancient tongue, but if anyone could have understood, they would have known what she said. The human will come again, and when he does, the chains of the galaxy will tremble. The human could no longer deny it. The giantess was not a mindless beast. She was not the monster the galaxy painted her to be. She was something else. Someone else. A prisoner of betrayal. A queen in chains. And now she had given him a choice. Her words still haunted him. Chains not forever. Choice yours. When he returned to the prison, the air around the gates was different. The guards no longer laughed at him, they no longer whispered that he was a fool. Instead, their eyes burned with fear and suspicion. The human listens to her. One muttered, "He is being pulled into her lies." Another said, but none dared stop him. Perhaps they feared him now as much as they feared her. Inside, the giantess was waiting, her glowing eyes steady, her body still weak but her spirit unbroken. When she saw him, she leaned forward, her chains groaning. "You came," she said, her voice low, her words clearer now. Each day her speech grew sharper as if his presence gave her strength. The human placed food on the floor again, but this time he did not step back. He stood close, his heart pounding. "You asked me to free you," he said, his voice firm though fear burned inside him. "If I do this, what will you do?" The giantess paused, her lips pressed tight, her eyes glowing brighter. "Live," she answered simply, her tone heavy. "Not destroy, not burn, live." The human narrowed his eyes, his mind racing. "Why should I trust you?" he asked. "Why should I risk everything for you?" The galaxy had warned him. The council had spoken. They all believed she was too dangerous, that if freed she would bring war and death, but he wanted her truth, not theirs. Her voice grew deeper, almost like thunder hidden in stone. "Because I trusted you," she said. "You fed me when all others let me starve. You listened when all others turned away. Trust must walk both ways." Her words struck him like fire, because she was right. He had started something, and now it was no longer small. The guards behind him began to shout, "Do not listen, human. She twists your mind. She is dangerous." Their weapons clinked, their voices desperate, but the human ignored them. His eyes locked with hers. He could see it, the sorrow, the rage, but also something more. Hope. That night, the alien council summoned him, their voices sharp, their faces full of anger. "You are a fool," one said. "You are blind." Another shouted, "She is ancient, she is dangerous. If you release her, she will not only destroy us, she will destroy humanity too." The human stood tall, his voice calm but defiant. "You let her starve for years, you silenced her, but she speaks, she remembers, she is not the monster you claim." His words sent shock through the chamber. Some shouted in rage, others whispered in fear. The council gave him a warning. "If you choose her, humanity will pay. The galaxy will not forgive, you will be hunted, you will be destroyed." Their words were meant to break him, but instead, they hardened his will. He returned to the prison once more, his steps heavy, his mind torn. He carried no food this time, only questions, only doubt. And when the giantess saw him, she tilted her head, her voice low. "You did not bring food." The human's voice shook. "I brought myself," he said. "Tell me the truth. If I set you free, will you bring war?" The question hung like a blade in the air. For a long moment she was silent, her glowing eyes fixed on his, and then she spoke, her voice deep, steady. "I will bring justice," she said. "Not war, not fire, but justice for chains, justice for betrayal." Her words were sharp, they cut through him, and for the first time he believed she was not lying. But justice was dangerous too. Justice meant blood. Justice meant revenge. And he knew it. Still, something inside him whispered that her justice might also mean freedom, not only for her but for others who lived in fear. The giantess leaned forward, her chains rattling like thunder. "Choice," she said again, her voice softer now, almost gentle. "Your choice decides, human chains. Or freedom." The human's chest tightened, sweat cold on his skin. He was standing at the edge of something far greater than himself. One choice, one step, and the galaxy would change. The guards shouted behind him, their weapons raised. "Do not listen, step back, she is dangerous." But their voices felt distant, faint compared to the weight of her words. He could feel her eyes burning into him, not with hatred, but with expectation, with trust, and with something that felt almost like faith. And in that moment, the human realized the truth. No matter what he chose, No matter what path he took, the galaxy would never forgive him. Humanity would never be forgotten. As he turned to leave, the giantess whispered one final word, her voice low, almost tender. "Soon," she said, and the chamber shook with the weight of it. The human walked out, his heart heavy, his mind ablaze. He had not made his choice yet, but soon he would, and when he did, the stars themselves would tremble. The prison was never quiet again after that night. Whispers filled the halls. The guards no longer mocked, no longer laughed. They only spoke in fear. "The chains are weakening," they said. "Her strength is returning," others murmured. "It is the human, he feeds her, he gives her power." The human felt the tension in every step he took. The council had warned him, the guards had threatened him, but still he returned. Still he walked into the chamber of the giantess. And when the heavy doors groaned open, he knew at once something was different. The air itself was alive, heavy, sharp, as if the very walls were waiting for something to happen. The giantess sat taller than before, her glowing eyes fierce, her chains rattling more than ever. When she looked at him, it was not with hunger or sorrow, but with fire. "Soon," she whispered again, that word she had spoken before, and as she said it, the floor trembled beneath their feet. The human froze, his heart pounding. "What is happening?" he asked, his voice unsteady. The guards shouted in panic. Some lifted their weapons, others fled. The giantess only leaned forward, her lips curling into a faint, almost triumphant smile. "Chains, break," she said, and her voice was like thunder rolling through the prison. And then it happened. One of the massive chains snapped. The sound roared like lightning, sparks flying as metal shattered. The guards screamed. Alarms blared across the fortress, red lights flashing, but the giantess did not rise. She did not strike. She simply sat, her eyes fixed on the human. "You see," she said, "it begins." The human's chest tightened, sweat on his forehead, fear clawing at him, but still he did not run. Instead, he stepped closer, shouting above the chaos. "Stop, they will kill you if you move, they will fire, stay down." His voice desperate, and to his shock she listened. She lowered her head slowly as if to show him that she was not yet free, not yet ready to rise. But the guards were not calm. Their voices rang out in terror. "We must end her now before the rest of the chains break." They lifted their weapons, energy crackling at the tips, their eyes wide with fear, ready to unleash destruction. The human spun around, his voice breaking with fury. "No," he shouted. "Do not harm her. She has not attacked. She has not moved. If you fire, you will start the very war you fear." His words clashed with their fear. Some hesitated, some lowered their weapons, but others did not, their hands shaking with the weight of their fear. The giantess spoke again, her voice deep, echoing like an ancient song. "They fear me, but I fear nothing." Her eyes glowed brighter than ever, and the walls seemed to hum with her power, cracks spreading where chains met stone, the fortress itself straining against her will. Another chain snapped, the sound shaking the ground. The guards stumbled, their cries sharp. The alarms grew louder. Voices of the council blared from speakers. "Contain her. Destroy her. Do not let her rise." But no one could act. Their fear pinned them as much as her power pinned the air. The human stepped closer again, his hands raised, his voice trembling but strong. "Listen to me," he said, speaking to her, not to them. "If you fight now, they will never forgive. They will never see the truth. Wait. Please wait." His eyes burned into hers, and for a long, endless moment she was still. Then slowly she lowered her head again, her chains rattling but not snapping, her breath heavy, her voice low. "For you," she whispered. "I wait." The human's heart leapt. The guards gasped. No one could believe it. The most feared prisoner in the galaxy had chosen to pause, not because of fear, not because of weakness, but because of a single human's words. But the prison itself was not calm. The alarm screamed, the council shouted, and the galaxy listened. The news spread like wildfire. The giantess is breaking free and a human stands beside her. Ships prepared for war. Armies readied their weapons. The stars themselves seemed to lean closer to watch. That night, when the human finally left the prison, his steps heavy, he knew there was no turning back. The giantess was awakening. Her power was returning, and every chain that broke was another moment closer to the truth. And though she had whispered she would wait, he knew waiting would not last forever. One day soon she would rise, and when she did, the galaxy would tremble. Far inside the prison, the giantess closed her eyes, her lips curling into a faint smile, her voice low and filled with certainty. "Soon, human," she whispered into the dark. "You will choose, and when you do, the stars will burn with your name." The galaxy waited in silence. Every ship, every station, every council chamber spoke the same words: the chains are breaking. Fear traveled faster than light. Entire fleets gathered near the prison, their weapons glowing, ready to fire at a moment's call. Yet inside those cold walls, only two beings mattered: the chained giantess and the lone human who fed her. The human returned once again, his steps heavy, his mind torn. He knew the truth now. The galaxy would not let her live if she escaped. Armies would rise, planets would burn, but he also knew something deeper. If he did nothing, if he let her rot in silence, then the galaxy would lose something far greater than fear. It would lose its chance for change. The giantess looked at him as the doors groaned open, her glowing eyes calm, her presence stronger than ever. Two chains had already snapped. The rest trembled under her strength. She could break them any time, but she waited. She had told him once, "For you I wait," and she had kept her word. When he stepped closer, she leaned forward, her massive frame lowering until her eyes burned into his. "Human," she said, her voice steady, strong, filled with a strange warmth. "The time is near. Choose." His chest tightened. The guards shouted from behind, their weapons raised. "Do not listen. She lies. Step away before it is too late." Their voices echoed, but they felt distant. In this moment, it was only her and him. He swallowed hard. "If I free you," he whispered, "what will become of me?" "Of humanity?" The giantess was silent for a long time, her glowing eyes unblinking. Finally, her deep voice rumbled through the chamber. "Humanity will be remembered." The words struck him like fire. He wanted to ask more, but her gaze stopped him. It was not a threat. It was not a promise of safety either. It was truth. Whatever happened, humanity would never be forgotten again. Suddenly, the walls shook. Another chain cracked, sparks bursting into the air. The alarm screamed, red lights flashing across the prison. Guards panicked, their weapons glowing, their shouts filled with terror. "She is breaking free. Fire now." "End this before it begins." But before they could fire, the giantess moved. Not to strike them, not to crush them, but to shield the human. Her massive arm lowered, her body curling slightly around him. She had chosen. In that moment, she showed them all he was not her prey. He was her protector, her bond, her proof. The guards froze, their fear clashing with disbelief. The council's voices roared through the speakers. "Destroy her at once. Humanity will answer for this treachery." But the human stepped forward, his voice louder than he thought possible, echoing through the chamber. "No, you will not kill her. You fear her because you never tried to understand her. You chained her because you saw power and called it danger. But I saw her hunger, her sorrow, her strength, and I fed her. She is not your monster. She is not your weapon. She is free." The word shook even the guards. Some lowered their weapons. Others trembled in confusion. The giantess lifted her head, her lips curling into something between pride and sorrow. Then she spoke again, her voice filling every corner of the fortress. "One human dared, when none would. Remember this. Humanity stands where all others fall. His courage is your warning. His choice is your future." The ground split as another chain shattered, sparks raining down like falling stars. Her body rose taller, her shadow covering the chamber. The guard stepped back in terror. The human's chest heaved. His choice was made even before he had spoken it. He would stand with her. Whatever came next, he would not turn away. And as the last unbroken chain strained under her power, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Armies gathered outside, fleets circling like predators, councils screaming in panic. But inside it was quiet. The giantess leaned closer one final time, her voice low, meant only for him. "You fed me," she whispered, "and now I will feed your legacy to the stars." The last chain cracked. The screen went dark.